Most companies are okay with spending $50,000 on a big lobby entrance moment. They're okay with big custom fabricated logos and high-end finishes, maybe even some lighting. Then you go beyond that defined area, and the rest of the office looks like a doctor's office. No offense to any of the doctors out there. Once you get through that initial lobby area, you start to see this transition begin. Bland hallways, large white walls start emerging at every turn. Yes, you're right, it looks boring. But guess what? That's not the real problem here. The real problem is you sent a message that your brand is fake. Because if it feels fake, you lose trust immediately. Here's an analogy that may help you understand what I'm talking about. It's like being on a stage set. You walk past that initial curtain and you begin to see, oh wait, those walls are fake. Oh, this whole stage is all fake. It's dramatic. It's a dramatic analogy, but this is the feeling people are having as they connect with your brand. Employees can feel this as much as your clients can, and you never want to lose or damage the trust of your team. Any new potential hire will feel this immediately as well. If you're losing trust with a job applicant, you make it much harder for yourself to land that top talent candidate. The thing is, it's no longer about aesthetic. It's about credibility. When your office space doesn't match what you've already said about your company with other marketing tactics, people start to disconnect with your brand. The worst part is leadership teams have no idea it's even happening. The big, beautiful lobby sign on the wall was approved and a box was checked. By the end of this video, you'll understand exactly why stopping at the lobby destroys brand credibility. You'll also understand what it means to make a space feel immersive in your brand and not just a logo on the wall. There are specific and intentional ways to design that communicate who you are without a single word on the wall. The best companies create brand experiences that are these memorable moments to make you feel something. This is how companies like Apple can create an experience when you connect with their brand that's undeniable. The same type of connection is something you can create for your own brand within your office space. You don't need to default to generic motivational quotes. Here's what you may be missing. Every unbranded hallway, every generic room sign, every blank conference room wall, it's silently telling your story, just not the story you want to tell. It's saying we're focused on how things look, but not on what actually matters. And that gap between what you say your brand is and what your space communicates is costing you plenty. It's costing you trust with your employees, credibility with your clients, and doubt from candidates who are deciding whether or not they want to join your team. I've been designing branded environments for companies for over 2 decades. I've watched leadership teams decide to invest an entire budget on a big entrance moment and then wonder why the culture still feels disconnected. The companies that get this right, I mean the ones where you walk in and immediately understand who they are. They treat their entire office as a storytelling tool. Every room, every hallway, every corner is a way to connect your brand to the audience. They use every opportunity to make a connection because your brand and how people connect with it matters. You spent $50,000 on your lobby entrance, then the rest of your office was left untouched. Now your brand feels fake, and here's why. The pattern we see constantly. Companies invest in a stunning entrance, custom fabricated logo with high-end finish and even some lighting. And then the office itself is left completely bare with no thought. White walls, generic conference rooms, builder-grade signage. Here's why this happens. It's not that leadership doesn't care. It's that they don't know how to brand beyond the lobby. The entrance is the obvious move. Everyone understands it. You put the logo on the wall. When people walk in, they create this wow moment. But after that, the strategy gets unclear. So it gets left undone. And that's totally understandable. But here's the actual problem this creates. When there's a sharp contrast between the branded entrance and the unbranded back-of-house workplace, it doesn't feel like an incomplete project. It feels intentional to someone seeing your space for the first time. Like your brand is a mask you put on for visitors. Take it off once they get inside. Employees can feel it. They walk past that expensive lobby every day into a generic hallway and think, yep, this is just all for show. When someone interviews at your company or visits for a meeting, they're evaluating whether you're real or not. If you say we're innovative, we value our people, but your office, beyond the lobby, looks plain and unthought of, the message is clear. The branding is surface level, and the space doesn't back up what you say. They stop believing everything you're saying. Your brand is the gap between what you say and what people actually experience. An expensive lobby with an unbranded office makes the gap enormous. It would be like if your website had a beautiful homepage and then broken links were everywhere. The first mistake companies make is stopping too early. But even when companies decide to brand beyond the lobby, most of them approach it wrong. They think branding means putting more logos on walls, and it's a very common misstep. Your brand is not a logo. Branded versus immersive. There's a massive difference between a space that's branded and a space that's immersive, and most companies never make it past decoration. Branded space is something you look at. An immersive space is something that you can feel. If you're not sure, your office should be the second one. Here's the difference. Here is what branded actually means in most offices. A logo's on the wall, maybe some brand colors in the carpeting or paint, perhaps a mission statement in vinyl lettering in the main conference room somewhere. These are the things you look at. They're visual markers. They say it's our brand. Here's why this approach falls short. Branded elements are static. You notice them once, maybe take a photo for LinkedIn, and then they become wallpaper. They don't change how the space feels to work in it. They don't influence behavior. They're just decoration. An immersive space is one where the brand is embedded into how the space functions, how it makes you actually feel, and what it communicates about the company's values without needing to say anything. You experience the brand in the material, the layout, the flow, the details that weren't left to chance. Immersion requires consistency across the entire floor plan. That means the brand needs to show up in the break room, in the hallways, in the bathroom, in the wayfinding signage. Not in a repetitive logo everywhere kind of way, but in a way that makes every space feel intentional, like it's part of the same story. Companies don't do this because immersive design requires thinking about every area differently. The messaging in a pantry where you unwind can't be the same as the messaging in the high-energy collaborative spaces. You need to map the floor plan, understand how each area is used, who works there, what's the right tone that fits that defined area. You want to know why companies don't do this? Because it's hard. Here's something to try. If you walk through the space blindfolded and you removed it at any random spot, could you tell what room you're actually in just by the vibe? If yes, you built an immersive environment. Congratulations. If not, you just branded some walls. But how do you actually create that immersion? How do you translate something as abstract as brand values or company mission into a physical space people can feel? That's where most companies get stuck. Most companies have no idea where to put branding beyond the lobby. Here's the exact process we use to map a floor plan and find the storytelling moments everyone else misses. Step 1, walk the space first. Before any design work happens, you need to physically walk the floor plan and see it from the perspective of someone who's never seen it before, not the person who works there every day. You're mapping first impressions, you're mapping sight lines, you're mapping transition moments. Where are these things happening? Step 2, identify high impact zones. Not every space needs to have equal attention. Start with the main entrance. This is your non-negotiable wow moment. First impression is everything. You need to communicate brand identity immediately, ideally through materials, textures, or an unexpected element, not just a logo. Step 3, map the user journey. Who walks through this space and in what order? Is this client-facing area? Maybe it's just employees. A space where candidates are supposed to interview. Each audience sees the space differently, and your design choice needs to match the intended experience for that zone. Step 4, match messaging to context. A break room where people unwind isn't a place for a bold mission statement. The tone there should be lighter, maybe a little fun, a little micro messaging, something that says good ideas usually start here, something fun like that. Compare that to a main hallway or collaborative space where reinforcing purpose makes sense. Step 5, look for opportunities to use brand specific materials. Can you incorporate your actual product into the design? A material that's unique to your industry? Something unexpected that makes people stop and ask questions. This is where brands move from generic to memorable. Step 6, don't fill every inch. Immersion isn't about volume, it's about intentionality. Blank space is fine, as long as the spaces you're designing do the storytelling work. Overcrowding the walls with graphics everywhere makes it feel like a theme park. So that's the process, but here's where it gets interesting. Once you map the floor plan and identified the storytelling zones, the question becomes, what do you actually put there? It's a valid question. And this is where most companies default. They go safe. They pick boring options. Maybe it's mission statements or core values or inspirational quotes. Let me show you why materials, textures, spatial decisions, they tell a stronger story than anything you write on a wall. The materials you choose and how you use the space say more about your brand than any mission statement ever will. Your brand shouldn't need words to explain itself. The second you walk into an Apple store, you know exactly who they are. Here's how materials do the talking. Apple never says, we We value simplicity and great design. You're not going to see that on a wall. You feel it though. You feel it the second you walk in. Massive open space, minimal product count, no clutter, clean line design, glass, metal materials. Even the staff is not trapped behind counters. They make sure to engage with a one-on-one experience. You meet with an Apple employee and you can't help but become fast friends with them. This is not an accident. This is by design. The environment and the people mirror the product philosophy so perfect that the brand promise becomes physical. Apple stores are the gold standard for this. You don't see signs explaining their values. You actually experience them. The materials, the glass, the metal, the woods, the layout, it's open, it's uncluttered, it's accessible. The staff positioning, they're approachable, not behind barriers. Everything reinforces simplicity, precision, and human-centered design. That's immersive branding. Materials become brand language. If your brand is rooted in craftsmanship, use raw materials. Use exposed wood, metal, maybe some tactile surfaces. If your brand is about transparency, incorporate glass. If it's about heritage, find materials with history or like patina. The materials you choose become the vocabulary of your brand story. Spatial decisions shape perception. Layout matters just as much as what you do on the walls. Open space communicates accessibility and collaboration. Segmented areas communicate focus and specialization. High ceilings feel aspirational while low ceilings feel intimate. The way you organize space tells people how you think about work. Let me give you a specific example. We worked with a company called Geiger Construction. They're a civil construction company, all underground work. When they dig, they use these wood planks called whalers, and that holds the earth back so they can do their job. We designed the perimeter of their entrance using actual whaler planks alongside images of the field team working in harsh conditions. That material choice did two things. It connected the front office employees to the field team's reality, and it made the brand story tactile. You could see it and feel the work that they do. No explanation was needed. For that same client, we highlighted their 3 buildings on Long Island with a large map in the entrance. It wasn't flashy. It was a quiet nod to their local roots and growth over time. Employees see it and feel pride. Clients see it and understand longevity and local expertise. The design choice reinforced identity without saying, "We've been here a long time." Incorporating something people don't expect creates a memorable moment. It could be reclaimed wood, industrial elements, or even artifacts from a company's history. The key is that it feels authentic to the brand and it's not forced. Materials and spatial choices do heavy storytelling work, but there's one category of design that's even more powerful than material, and that's history. Specifically, telling your company's origin story through physical artifacts and design. Most companies completely overlook this, and it's one of the most emotional ways to make your brand feel real. Why the most powerful branding in your office isn't a mission statement, it's your origin story told through physical design. Vineyard Vines knows a thing or two about brand storytelling. They hang the exact piece of driftwood their grandfather carved that inspired the logo that is a whale, and it's above every entrance. That's how you turn history into brand emotion. Every company has a history, even if you launched 6 months ago. There's a founder's story. Who started it? Why? What moment made them quit their job and take the leap? What obstacles did they face early on? That story is your brand's emotional foundation, and most companies never tell it visually. Let me tell you about Vineyard Vines. 2 brothers quit their corporate job to start selling ties with a whimsical pink whale logo. That's already a good story, but here's a deeper layer. Their grandfather carved and painted a piece of driftwood with a whale on it, and it hung above the entrance to their family boathouse. That driftwood was the inspiration for what is now the Vineyard Vines logo, and it's on millions of their products. We recreated that original piece of driftwood as a functional design element, and now it hangs above the entrance every Vineyard Vines retail store location. Customers might not know the backstory when they first see it, but employees do. And when customers ask, "What's that?" which they do, it becomes a storytelling moment. That brand isn't abstract anymore. It's tied to a real artifact, that real brand family, a real beginning. It's not corporate. It's not manufactured. It's a piece of the founder's actual history made physical. And that authenticity creates emotional connection. Employees feel connected to the origin. The customers feel like they're part of something with roots. It turns the brand from a business into a story people want to be part of. How do you apply this to your own company? Here's how you do it. Find the artifacts. What object, moment, maybe there's a place, company's beginnings. Was there a whiteboard sketch that started everything? Was there a prototype somebody made? Maybe the location matters. Maybe there's a handwritten note. Take a story and make it physical. Commission art based on it. Recreate the object object. Frame the original if you still have it. Put it somewhere people see it and ask about it. Origin stories and materials do the heavy lifting. But here's the mistake I see all the time. Companies think branding and wayfinding are separate projects. Branding is creative stuff. Wayfinding is just functional rooms and numbers and directions. And because of that separation, they treat wayfinding as an afterthought, and it quietly destroys everything else they've built. Your wayfinding signage is one of the most visible, repeated brand touchpoints in your entire office. And when it's an afterthought, it screams that your brand stops at the pretty stuff. You spend $100,000 branding your office, then you use builder-grade room number signs from Amazon. And now everyone knows you don't actually care about details. Here's why wayfinding matters. Wayfinding includes room numbers, directional signs, floor identifiers, bathroom signs, emergency exit markers, ADA compliant signage, elevator indicators. It even helps people navigate your space. Most companies see wayfinding as purely functional. It's not part of the branding project. It's just something the builders need to have for code compliance or basic navigation. So either let the GC handle it with a generic builder grade option, or they order standard signs online and call it done. Here's the actual problem this creates. Wayfinding signage is everywhere. Employees see it multiple times a day. Clients see it when they're looking for the conference room. Candidates see it when they're trying to find the bathroom during an interview. It's one of the most repeatable visual touch points in your office. And when it looks cheap or generic or mismatched, it tells people we care about the big showy stuff, but we don't care about the details. Detail-obsessed brands design wayfinding as part of the brand system. The typography matches the brand fonts. The materials, they align with the brand's physical language. Metal plaques for industrial brands, minimalistic acrylic for tech companies, wood for heritage brands. The color palette is consistent. The mounting style, it's intentional. It doesn't scream custom, it just feels right. Imagine walking into an office with a $50,000 branded lobby installation, custom fabricated logo, high-end materials, carefully chose lighting. Then you turn the corner and the conference room sign is a plastic plaque with Helvetica in black and white mounted with visible screws. The contrast is jarring, and it makes the expensive lobby feel like window dressing, not part of a cohesive system. That doesn't mean every room sign needs to be elaborate, but you can use wayfinding to reinforce brand personality. A playful brand might name conference rooms after inside jokes or maybe company milestones instead of the typical conference room A. The point is, don't default to builder grade just because it's functional. We've covered why stopping at the lobby destroys credibility, the difference between decoration and immersion, how to map a floor plan for storytelling, why materials matter more than words, how to make your origin story physical, and why wayfinding can't be an afterthought. But there's one more level to this that most companies never reach: designing for the people who actually work there. The biggest mistake in office branding is treating every space the same. Different areas need different designs because different people use them. Here's how we designed 199 feet of hallway for scientists and why they couldn't actually look away. We designed 199 feet of microscopic disease art for a Johnson & Johnson lab. To most people, beautiful abstract prints. To the scientists working there, it was a museum. It was a museum they were emotionally connected with. That's the difference between generic decoration and designing for your actual audience. We were working with Johnson & Johnson on their science labs. Long white hallways, 199 feet of blank walls. The space felt sterile, cold, uninspiring. Leadership wanted to add something. To make it feel less clinical, but they didn't want generic corporate art or motivational posters. The people working there were scientists. The design needed to speak to them. So we asked, who works in this space every day? Scientists, researchers, people who spend their career studying diseases at the microscopic level. Instead of treating this like a generic hallway, we asked, what would this specific audience connect with emotionally and intellectually? We designed large format prints. They were 6 foot diameter. They were massive. Massive images of microscopic images of diseases. The images were stunning. Bold, vibrant colors, abstract, almost artistic. To someone walking with no context, they looked like a museum quality fine art print. They were beautiful and intriguing. But the scientists knew exactly what they were looking at. These weren't just pretty pictures. These were the diseases they studied, the pathogens they worked to combat, the cells they spent years researching. For them, walking down the hallway became a completely different experience. It was their work, elevating appreciated and celebrated. It made it feel seen. It made them proud of what they did every day. This is what happens when you design for the actual people in the space instead of designing generically for the brand. The scientists didn't need a mission statement reminding them why their work mattered. They needed their environment to reflect the depth, the importance of what they were already doing. And that's what created that emotional connection. Now, how do you apply this to your office? Map your floor plan by department or function. Ask who works here. What do they care about? What would resonate with them specifically? The design in your sales team's area might emphasize momentum or competition and wins. The design in your engineering area might emphasize process or precision and problem solving. The design in your leadership area might be vision or legacy and impact. Stop designing the same message for every space. Why don't most companies do this? Because it's hard. It requires research. It requires understanding each team's identity and what motivated them. It's easier to just slap company values on every wall and call it done. That's decoration, not immersion. Immersion happens when people see themselves in the space. If you're a brand director or in charge of workplace experience or facilities, and you're realizing your office isn't telling the story you thought it was, or if you're planning a rebrand, an office move, or a redesign, and you want to make sure your physical space actually reflects the company you're building, we should talk. We manage the entire process from strategy to design through fabrication and installation. That means you're not coordinating multiple vendors or explaining your brand vision 6 different times to 6 different teams. You work with one partner who understands what you're trying to accomplish and handles everything in-house. If that sounds like the kind of partnership you're looking for, click the link below. Let's start a conversation. So here's what we covered. Most companies make the mistake of stopping at the lobby, and that contrast between the branded entrance and the unbranded workplace, it makes the brand feel fake. The solution isn't more logos. It's creating an immersive environment where the brand shows up consistently across the entire floor plan. In the materials you use, the spatial decisions you make, your origin story told in a physical way, even the wayfinding that doesn't get treated as an afterthought, and design that speaks to the specific people working in that space. The shift here is realizing that your office isn't just a place people work. It's the most honest representation of your brand. More honest than your website, more honest than your pitch deck, because it's the environment people experience every day. And when the environment is intentional, when every design choice reinforces who you are and what you value, it doesn't just look good, it builds trust. Builds trust with your team, builds trust with your clients, builds trust with candidates deciding if they want to join your team. If this video helped you see your office differently, hit the subscribe button. Share it with your leadership team or your workplace experience peers, because most companies are making these mistakes and don't even realize it.